Oh my gosh, everybody, welcome back to the It Takes Grit podcast, version 2.0. Our
Woohoo.
very first guest of the new series is my great friend Kacia. She is the host of Empower Her podcast. It has over 10 million downloads. She's a new wife, a new mom. She's a super successful entrepreneur. But most importantly, I brought her on this show because I want to hear her spice. She has a great way of just being authentically herself. I love her story. She's not afraid to do anything and to make bold moves. So, Kacia, thank you so much for being on the show.
Rebecca, I am so pumped to be here with you. I just love you so much. I want to squeeze you through the computer. So I'm excited to talk about all the juicy things. You know, I'm such an open book and this is going to be so fun. So thank you.
This is now you are on our podcast, the version 1.0. And so for
Yeah.
those people who don't know you,
Yeah.
I know that we went into your story a lot last time. So if anyone wants to really catch up and dive in, but for those people who don't know you, tell us a little bit about you've had many different career opportunities and jobs. Where did you start and how do you get to where you are today?
Yeah. So high level, I did the thing that I thought that I was supposed to do. And then when I got there, I looked around and I was like, oh crap, this isn't it. Which I feel like a lot of people can connect with, where, I climbed the corporate ladder and I had the great title. And then I had this gut feeling that I wanted to do something in the entrepreneurial space. Cause since a little girl, I've always been very entrepreneurial, but I didn't know what to create. So I started in network marketing and that turned me down this path of entrepreneurship. And then eventually that no longer felt aligned. So I started a podcast, my show, Empower Her, that you mentioned. And the intention was for me to build community around that show and then figure out what problems I was most excited to solve for my community, which turned into podcast courses and memberships and masterminds and a speaking career and live events and all of these cool things that I've done. And then I started to get this feeling in the back of my head where I was like, everything that I'm doing in my business requires me to be on. And I wouldn't get paid if I didn't host the retreat or if I didn't speak at the event or if I didn't, record the podcast or whatever. Everything that I was doing required me to be on. So I started thinking about that in the back of my head. And at the time, my husband, Sina, was a dentist and he started to feel like that was no longer aligned. So he left dentistry in 2021 and we decided together to get into the real estate space. So the idea was to take all of the active income from my business and also start to pour it into real estate to create more passive income, but also to create opportunities for me to not have to necessarily be on when eventually we had kids. Turns out I got pregnant. We just had a baby at the time that we're recording this. I have a 2-month-old baby. And I didn't know at the time back then that I was creating options for a future version of me that I would be so grateful for. But now I'm sitting in this current new season of an identity shift, going from being this fast paced, go entrepreneur to trying to savor this newborn season. And I'm in a real different season of life than I was back on version 1 of It Takes Grit. So I'm excited to dive into that.
Oh my gosh, that's so awesome. Yeah, you really have changed. I mean, and not in
Yeah.
a I mean, I think we just evolve and grow and we
Yeah.
choose on what's more important to us at that time. And I really do love that you're talking more about where to put your money in finances because really,
Yeah.
if I knew what I knew like just 5 years ago, oh my gosh, I would have so much more like equity in real estate and I would be in a much, I guess stronger position. But I think that we need to give ourselves grace that we figure
Yeah.
it all out in the time that we need to, right? Because sometimes
Yes.
you look at people and you're like, how are they living this passive, so-called passive lifestyle? They've got money in real estate. Well, it's just because they made a decision or they learned from somebody earlier on. Like, give yourself
Yeah.
permission not to be like, oh, I feel like I'm behind. Because when you started your very first business, you didn't know anything really about real estate.
I didn't know anything about anything. I did not know what the hell I was doing. But to your point, Rebecca, what's so cool about that is when you start something new, for anyone listening into this, starting something new, obviously you're going to suck at the beginning because you have no idea what you're doing, but you're also going to feel like there's so much space between where you are now and where you want to go because you don't you don't know how to get there yet. But when you do get there, you get to look back at the path that you took toward getting there and see how far you've grown. And it's so incredible. When I look back to like baby Kacia, where my first membership that I had, I used to write with a Sharpie on this big like easel of paper, and I'm like, that girl, like, oh my gosh, she had no idea what was coming. But when I contrast where I am now, I'm just like, dang, like I'm so proud of her for getting in the game without knowing where it would take her, you know?
Yeah, and I think that there's this misconception of when you first started out, now you're in a
Yeah.
more balanced, I guess it's the word balance, right? You're in a more balanced role. Now you're like more intentional with where you're putting your time, and you can spend more time on you, and you have a little baby. But at the
Yeah.
beginning, I want you to take people back to the grind and the grit that it took at the
Yes.
beginning. Because nowadays it's like, oh, it's so easy to make money online. Like you just sell this course or you just do that. But like when you first start out at anything, the first
Yep.
2 to 3 years, you are busting your ass from
Preach.
morning until night. It takes
Yes.
time to get to where you are. So what did your hours look like when you were first
Yes.
building the business and getting money in?
Oh, thank you so much for talking about this too, because it is like, I mean, in line with your podcast name, but it is the grittiness that like you have to have that grittiness at the beginning because there's so much conversation around do it when it feels in flow and like when the moon is in retrograde and all this stuff. I'm like, what? Like that does not make sense when you're first starting. And to me, the feeling that I can best describe it as, it felt like I was pushing a gigantic monster truck tire up a hill and I was ugly crying, the kind of cries where your snot and mascara gets inside your mouth and you choke on your spit and you have no idea what you're doing. That's what the beginning did feel like, combined with some excitement because it was new and fresh. So it was like the contrast of that like grittiness that was required with this contrast of I'm really excited. I wonder what could happen. And I had to really just lean on the excited part and really tap into that. But it looked like, I mean, my first business I built alongside my full-time corporate job. Back then, this is 2015. I was working at Google and I was working, 50, 60 hours a week building that business before and after work. And it was such a grind. But that's what built the skills and this resourcefulness and this resilience and this character that now I feel like I still have that in me. I don't build my business in the way that I used to build it. But I am so grateful for that season because it taught me so much and it really helped me build up confidence. Because I feel like confidence is built from, like keeping the promises to yourself and just showing up daily. And I had so many of these little like deposits in my confidence bucket because of the fact that I was putting so many reps in and it felt like I was so confused and so unsure of if it would ever work out. And I didn't have the contrasting experience. Like I couldn't say, when you're new to something, it's like you don't have the experience to look back on and say, see, last time I did this thing, it worked out. So you're so unsure of yourself. You're lacking confidence. You have people that don't understand your vision. It's such a shit show. And I just am so, for anyone that's in that season, like keep going because that's what builds your character. And that's what helps you like build the skills that when you get there, wherever there is that you're working toward, you can actually handle it. Right. Because, especially Rebecca, with what you do too, like even in like the health and wellness community, it's like how many women are like, I'd love to lose 15 pounds today. But it's like, okay, but you don't have the habits, you don't have the workout regimen, you don't know how to fuel your body or rest or hydrate yourself. So then if you did lose 15 pounds today, you actually can't maintain it. You're not the person yet. So like we need that time. And I just love that you talk about this because I'm so tired of the manifest and just let it fall into your lap. I'm like, yeah, that's part of it, but you also have to work, girl. Like,
Oh my gosh, we're so on the same page with that because I'm like, if I see one more post about just being flow and it will come to you. No, it fucking doesn't. It doesn't. You
yeah,
go out and get it. And I look at my life now and someone can watch me like, well, you get in your sauna for 20 minutes in the morning, and then you do a 3-minute ice bath, and then you listen to your audio, and then you haven't really done anything till 10 a.m. I'm like, I know, because I've been busting my ass for 10 years. When I
yes,
started, I was in a 741 square foot apartment that
yep,
I rented. And I would be getting up day in, day out. Like it was just hustle, hustle, hustle. It
yep.
was super messy, but you have to hustle. And you can't be like, well, I've worked really hard for like 5 days. I'm going to take the whole weekend off. I'm like, it just doesn't work. You have to be doing things day in, day out. So I love that we're on the same page as that. One thing that you did recently is that you launched a mastermind And then I believe
Yeah.
you changed your mind. Tell me
Yeah.
a little bit about that.
So I think it's so important to normalize that you're going to change your mind as you evolve. And what's interesting is, so right now, and a lot of moms would be able to connect with this, but anyone that's a high achiever who's in a different season of life where they have to go at a different pace, I feel as if this will be relevant. Where as soon as our son Brody was born, a couple weeks in, I started to feel really like stir crazy because newborns sleep all the time. And the sleep deprivation hadn't caught up with me yet. So I was like, gosh, I just like, I'm so excited about my business. There's so many things that I want to do. And I was telling my husband, Cena, I'm like, I have all these ideas. Like, this is what I'm going to go create. I'm like, I can do this and be a super present mom and wife and all the roles that I want to play. Like, I can do this all. And I do believe that you can be a super successful entrepreneur and a really present mom and wife and all of the roles that you want to play. But with newborn season, it's a little bit different because you're adjusting so much. And there's this identity shift that happens that I'm experiencing in real time as we're talking about this, where like you're pulled with these two conflicting things where you want to build a business the way that you know how to build a business. And I, like you, Rebecca, have been an entrepreneur for 10 years. So I'm used to a certain pace. I'm used to a certain lifestyle. I'm used to when I set my to-do list for the day, I can get my to-do list done. But now I have a tiny little human that requires me. And he's in this stage where he's really clinging to his mom right now, which I love. And it's so fun. But when your pace has to change and you also notice your desire changes, that's a real mind game because I'm like, well, who am I if I'm not this person who used to operate in this way at this speed? Can I still build a business? And like the questions that you start asking yourself, you have to take inventory of those questions because if you're asking crappy questions, you're going to get crappy answers. So what I did instead of deciding to throw everything out is I was like, you know what? Right now, I need to slow down because I think there's something that I need to learn in this season that will be supportive and conducive towards the person that I want to be, the wife I want to be, the mom I want to be, the entrepreneur that I want to be. If I'm going at such a fast pace, I'm missing the opportunity to not only savor this stage, but learn more about myself. And to be honest, what came up for me that was so interesting was this subconscious programming I had in my head with my ability to create income being tied to my worthiness because I've been a high income earner for many years. And I mean, obviously, my husband, Cena, but for people listening in, he doesn't care at all about how much money I make or anything like that. We've been together for 15 years, but I had this tie in my head that was like something about me is more valuable if I can earn a substantial amount of income. And that's a really weird feeling because it was subconscious. Like I didn't know that that was a thought that I had, but I had to almost like slow down, cancel this mastermind, which was going to generate over 6 figures, refund everybody's money, which sucks, not just from a money perspective, but from like a letting people down perspective. That sucks. But I really sat in this. And as I started slowing down, it was like these questions and this subconscious programming like came to the forefront of my mind. And I was like, those thoughts don't serve me. And I need to work on that because where I want to go is going to require me to be a different person that has to expose like these thoughts and work on those thoughts too. So currently, I closed a mastermind that would have generated a lot of money. And I'm actually in this season where I'm working part-time on my business and I'm forcing myself to not launch anything actively for the next 6 weeks and just savor the season that I won't get back, but also force myself to slow down because it's so uncomfortable that I need to confront what I need to learn in this season because I've never had a real slowdown season before.
Yeah, and I think that's really brave to make that decision because you're right. You're never going to get that time back with a newborn, right? I mean,
Yeah.
this is like the biggest, they're like changing and growing like so much in this time.
Yeah.
I think it's a great decision to make where you're at. I think that where people go wrong is that they're just starting out their business and they make the decision that you made to like stop something.
Yeah.
Almost like at that point, that's not when there's got to be seasons of your life when you got to make the decision, hey, this is not right for me. But I
Yeah.
feel like I don't want to give anybody permission who's just starting out their business being like, oh, well, it doesn't feel right. No, it's
Right.
different. Kacia's already got a 10-year experience. She just had
Yeah.
a baby. She's the person who likes to launch stuff all the time. But what would you tell somebody new? Like, if you have an idea, you gotta run with it, right? And not when it
Yeah.
just doesn't feel right. Because sometimes when it doesn't feel right, it just means that you need to break through that to get to what it needs to be.
Yeah, I think it's really important that we don't mistake resistance as something that says like we're not capable of doing it or we shouldn't push through that resistance. Because there's a difference when you're in a season where you're launching something from the place of like, I feel like I need to do this, or from a place of I'm new to this, or I'm elevating to that next level and it's uncomfortable and I'm meeting this resistance. But on the other side of that resistance, is such a beautiful gift of this business that you're excited about and this person that you become along the way. But I think we do need to normalize the fact that like it's not always going to feel good when you're growing because you're letting go of all of the past beliefs that you had about yourself, especially when it's brand new for you. It's just like people that don't understand it. And like, often we say like we're worried what quote unquote people think or what they think. But when you're new to entrepreneurship or when you're elevating to that next level, it's often one person or two people's voices in your head. So I want to anyone that's worried about what they think in order to evolve to that next level, name the actual person and then ask yourself, am I willing to give up on my dreams because of that person? Like, would I ever even want to switch places with that person? Probably not. Would you want that person's life? Right. And so I think like that's where a lot of that resistance comes from, or us telling ourselves the story that's like, I can never get there. So I'll just throw in the towel now and pretend like I don't care. But then I would encourage you to think about the fact that eventually, 1 year from now, 2 years from now, TBD amount of days from now, you're going to look back. And I don't want you to have coulda, woulda, shouldas, or regret wondering what would have happened if you would have gone for it simply because it was uncomfortable. It's supposed to be uncomfortable. That's where the growth happens. If you're in a season right now, like me, where you've got a ton of track record of times that you've made decisions and pushed through resistance, you can tell the difference in your body of is this resistance of me growing to that next level, or is this resistance telling me that it's time to slow down? And if you don't have that track record yet, you don't know how to differentiate that in your body. So I would challenge you to like push through it and see what comes on the other side. But if you sit thinking about it, not taking any action, then you're not going to get the lessons that you need to learn to help support you with where you want to go, you know?
Yeah, that's so true. One of the things that I think you were, I don't know, 1 or 2 weeks after you had Brody,
Yeah.
and you things of people saying like, "Why are you going for a walk?" And you
Yeah.
said like, "I'm about to get like more spicier than ever." Uh,
Yeah.
what was it that gave you like the strength to be like, I just these messages, or what were you getting? Let's just talk to people
Yeah.
who are like, how is even Kacia getting messages? That's what's so crazy is I don't want anyone here to think like they're alone. I've got
Yeah.
shitty messages. You've got shitty messages for having a child and going for a goddamn walk. Like
Yeah.
anybody out there who's getting a message from someone like shitting on them, like, don't worry, it's just part of the growth. But what
It's
happened? What was the message that you got?
the first day that so I had a unmedicated childbirth and I had no complications and I was so grateful for the experience that like I loved giving birth. Like I thought it was so awesome. And I told you, Rebecca, but like you've climbed Mount Everest, that's way harder than giving birth in my opinion. So you got this. But honestly, it's crazy because I had a couple of people that slid into my DMs saying like this is the time that you should be watching Netflix and chilling. Why are you going on a walk? Like you're going to risk like injuring your body and like this is not safe for you. And I was like, who the hell do you think you are? Like do you think that I would be going on a walk if I was risking my health? Like I'm not. I'm going to listen to people that actually know my experience, like my actual doctors, and I'm going to listen to my body because I know what's best for me. And it was so interesting because it was almost like I moved into this like field of this like mom shaming thing where people are deciding like I have more experience than you in this field of like I have kids that are older than you because you have a 1 day old baby. Let me just tell you how you're doing it wrong so I can get some sort of like good feeling from like shaming someone else. And I was like, what the hell? I am not going to tolerate it. And it was so interesting because if more of us step into this, like I'm not going to tolerate this, you start to notice that people aren't gonna like people know that if you can't be like affected by this, then they're not going to come at you as much. But you're always going to get some sort of feedback. And you just get to decide, do I care about what this person thinks? Am I going to let a stranger on the internet stop me from chasing my dreams? Because honestly, John C. Maxwell has a quote that says, success to me is when the people who know me the best love me the most. And that's always like my moral compass, like my close family, my husband, my son, like people that I like actually know me, not like a Sally Stu 293 on the internet. It's like, you don't want me to go for a walk. Well, I don't really care because I'm not going on a walk with you, Sally. Like, just do you. And like, that's going to happen. And I think the realness of it is, of course, as humans, we have the desire to be liked. I think that's normal. But one thing to think about is like, not letting the weight of people's opinions who don't truly know you, whether the opinions are really good, get to your head, or the opinions are really negative, get to your head. Like kind of keeping this separation. And honestly, even as my podcast has grown, I've gotten I mean, I get way more positive feedback than negative feedback for sure. But even the positive feedback, I can't let it have too much weight because I want to be creating from a place of like, I want to create and I'm excited to talk about this, not I'm creating for your validation or your acceptance, because that's a different place to create from. So for anyone that's struggling with what people are thinking about you, or like you're like getting DMs or whatever, it's like that person is irrelevant, because if you're willing to give up on your dream because of that person, then you don't want it bad enough. So go back to, why do you actually want this? Who's going to benefit as a byproduct of you going for this? And it's going to be your actual family, like the people that really truly matter to you. So like keep that on the forefront of your mind to know why you're doing this, and the rest of them just like let them go, because when people react like that, it's a reflection of them, not of you, you know?
I couldn't believe it. I was like, what is this world coming to? But I love what you just said. You almost just gave me like chills, and just to release something. It's like,
Yeah.
you don't keep posting what you're doing. You are, the toleration. You said tolerate.
Yeah.
You're
Yep.
tolerating them. But because eventually you kept going on walks, they're going to disappear.
Yep.
And it's the same with me. Like I had a similar situation. I'm getting messages from people on social media and I stopped posting.
Yeah.
Why? Because I was tolerating their negative behavior. And it was
Yeah.
scary, right? It's scary when somebody sent you something shitty about what you're doing or circumstances, you start to get in your head.
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, hang on a second. Well, you didn't. You're great. You were just like, no, I'm out on my walks, right? But I
Yeah.
think a lot of times you get so in your head because one person, it can
Yeah.
sometimes just be one a day. It could be like over the course of like 6 months, it's been 5 people. And those
Yeah.
people have influenced you so much and you've tolerated their negative behavior. So how do you, I know what you've kind of spoken about it, but how did you say basically like, fuck it, like I'm gonna post my story, I'm gonna post my journey, and like if you like it, great. If you don't, not, do you block and delete those people? Like what did you do? Did you answer them or did you just keep
Yeah.
going?
Yeah. So two
How
parts
do
to
you
this.
find that strength? How do you find the strength?
One of them is like, one part of this answer is like, this is a very deep like feeling for me, is like the fragility of life is always on the forefront of my mind. I lost two friends at age 30, and then my husband lost his dad 2 years ago. So like our days are numbered here and we don't know the count. And people say that, but if you actually like let that sink in, you're telling me that the thing that is bringing you joy and fulfillment, and you're making impact and you love what you're doing, you're going to let some random hoo-ha on like Instagram hold you back from that when you don't know how much time you have here. Like it just actually doesn't even make sense to me. Like from a core belief that I'm like, I'm supposed to go live my life unapologetically and inspire people who are supposed to be around. I'm not supposed to water myself down and cater to people that don't understand me. Those people can leave, bless and release, like get on out of here. And honestly, I'm so cautious of my own energy in terms of like what I'm going to pour energy into. And I am just not even going to, I'm not going to pour energy into it. I'm not responding to people on Instagram that don't understand my life or my vision. I'm not like taking the time to do that, because that energy could be used to uplift people, to uplift myself, to pour into people that I actually care about. So if someone's coming at you, like it's your page, block, delete comments, like unfollow. And I've actually just gotten more unapologetic about even who I'm for. So for anyone listening into this that's building a business, I think it's important to know who you're for, but also who you're not for. Because I am not at this stage in life, I'm not probably for people that don't want to build like businesses in some regard, or don't have a dream outside of their corporate job, or their, if they're a mom, like they have another dream of things that they want to do. So I'm getting really unapologetic about the importance of like chasing your dreams and also being a mom. So people that are not interested in ever being moms, or aren't interested in ever building businesses, those people are exiting, right? And so like as you start to figure out who you're for and who you're not for, and do what actually feels aligned, please know that some people will leave, but you want them to leave. This obsession with growth and like more followers and more this and more subscribers and more downloads and more, like get the people that are right for you, because when you start sharing what's right for you and you're actually maybe even polarizing to some people, you'll notice the right people come in, they're like, this is my girl. And then the wrong people, they exit the building. And that feels good. And that is something that, to be honest, I didn't even think I would have never identified as someone that like had people pleasing tendencies. But even as my brand has evolved, like from having a show for the last 5 years, I started as this girl who wanted to be the personal development person for everyone. And now I'm like, no, 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 you're not for you. I'm not for you. And that's okay too. And it feels so much better to be an authentic version of yourself than to go around trying to cater to everyone. Like, screw it. I'm just done. I don't want the energy.
Well, otherwise you feel lost. You don't actually
Yeah.
know who you are because you're being somebody online. And if you are being more who you're not online, you're going to eventually try to change who you are like offline because the influence. I mean, the person with the most certainty has influence over the other. So if you've
Yep.
got two people, both of which is yourself, one that's online and one that's like the real you, if you keep having more certainty that this person online is how you should be, you're going to influence the real you, and you're going
Yep.
to change what's really important. And I don't believe that you're fully happy until you're completely in alignment with who you are, what you stand for, your values. Otherwise, you just have mixed emotions.
Well, and also, Rebecca, it's easier. Like a lot of people that are pretending right now, think about how much energy sometimes it just requires to be a human and like human through life, right? Well, I mean, if you're not pretending, you're not acting, and you're not exerting more energy to be something that you're not. Like if you're just yourself in every single environment, it feels so much better and it really is so much easier. And
Mm-hmm.
you don't have the block up, but people can feel if it's real, and that will in turn grow your brand and business because people can sense if it's authentic. There's so much carefully curated stuff where people are just not showing up as themselves. So if you want to be the difference maker, like actually be you, and the right people will come on board, you know?
I love that. When you first started, you did a little bit of network marketing.
Yes, I
You
did.
started in network marketing. What would you give? Because I know that there's lots of people that listen to my podcast interested in network marketing. Obviously, I've
Yeah.
been doing it for 10 years,
Yeah.
but it's scary. The first thought what people have is, oh my gosh, I got to go speak to people. I'm like, yeah, that's the first thing. Because if you don't speak to people, if you don't tell them about your product or what you're doing, it's going to be really hard for you to grow. And if you don't grow in the first week, you start to lose that confidence and you're like, oh, it must not be for me.
Yep.
So somebody's first steps getting into network marketing, what was it that you did? Because you obviously very successful in it.
Yeah.
What would you, someone's tips for like first getting started?
First, I think it's important to have a goal that's like a human goal related to who you are as a person. So, for example, if you identify as an introvert or you're uncomfortable talking to people or you're uncomfortable sharing about something, as you build your network marketing business, you're going to become a better human being, right? Regardless of the outcome in terms of income and team size and sales and all of that. Like that stuff is all important and you should build a business that you're excited about. But like, have a human goal of why you're doing this. Because I know for me, when I started, I was 24 years old and I was working in a corporate environment where I was overseeing like a software engineering team. So I had my personality shoved into a pencil skirt and I was like, I want to do this network marketing thing from a human perspective of I want to be a more expressed version of Kacia because I didn't get to do that in my corporate job. So this became this outlet where I was building it on the side. I didn't really know what it was going to turn into, but I was so excited and passionate about it because it let me be a fully expressed version of me. And I felt like instead of a light switch, I was like turning on this dimmer switch where I was becoming more and more myself. I liked the person that I was as I was building this business. So step one, like figure out what is your human goal that building this business can provide you as an actual person. Step two is stop like with the so I think sometimes the narrative of network marketing, it can have this negative connotation, but like anything that you love that is helping you, you're going to tell your girlfriends or your family about it. Like if you have a product that you love, if you have like, like I was literally just drinking this tea and I almost just started talking to you about this tea. It's like anything that I'm excited about, I'm going to share anyways. So don't make this decision of like, it has to be this serious business. I think when you're first starting, just share what you're passionate about. Why are you passionate about it? And as your brand starts to evolve, figuring out who do I really want to serve? Who would I be most excited to serve and kind of niching to that lane. But at the beginning, talk about it with everyone and start to get yourself more comfortable, knowing that at first you're going to feel uncomfortable because anything that you're doing that's new is going to be uncomfortable. But I'll tell you now, I haven't built a network marketing business since 2019, but the income that I still make from it can pay a mortgage for one of our Airbnbs and our primary house. and I haven't touched it since 2019. So why I'm saying that is for those of you that end up doing this and doing this in an aligned way, even if you don't end up doing this for 10 years, like you have, Rebecca, like it still can serve you. And that's real residual income. So it's a beautiful business model. And there's so much proof of concept with it. And it's like being in a like a business where you get to learn all of these skills, especially because I feel like network marketing is often like the gateway into entrepreneurship for a lot of people, where like that's going to be, there's so many different things that you can do stemming off from all of the skills that you learn. So treat it like a skill building opportunity that's going to serve you too. I like have so many positive things to say about it, but it's like often the blocks that we have is like, I don't want people to know about my business. It's like, but you're gonna tell people about like the thing that you got off of Amazon, and Jeff Bezos has just been like dollar bill, y'all. Like, right? Like, why not? Why not you? And why not show other people? And for like the stay-at-home moms and the people that want like another stream of income, keep in mind that building a business like this is also another stream of fulfillment, getting to connect with other women, and like it's just so cool. So don't tell yourself a story that you're not capable, or look at someone who's way down the road and think that you can't get there. You can, but you have to put your reps in, and everybody starts sucking. Rebecca sucks when she started. I sucked when I started. We all suck. And you just keep putting your reps in. So then you suck less, and eventually you get good. And if you keep going, you get great.
That's why I have to work so hard at the beginning, because you suck so much that now I can speak to someone and get them started. But before I'd have to speak to like 20 people to get one person. Now it's like two and one of them will start. That's why it's different as you get older and you get more experience with entrepreneur. It's just because you get better at it. You get much better at the beginning. Oh my gosh, I was doing like, I don't know how many calls a day. It was just like next. But you build the skills and you have less. You don't have any expenses. It's the best way to start a business. The only thing that you get to do in network marketing is doing the sale and the promotion. You don't have to create products. You don't have to have a customer service team. You don't have to do any delivery. It's all done.
It's so much easier. It like people don't like, I didn't know it when I was doing it, but after like starting a business outside of network marketing, I was like, oh my God, it was so much easier to do that business. And even if it feels hard at the beginning, it always feels hard at the beginning. But when you look back, you're going to be like, you know what? Like this was a beautiful opportunity for me. So I totally see where you're coming from with that.
I'm gonna dive into a different topic right now, because you said something earlier, and I don't think I've ever heard anybody said that they really enjoyed childbirth. So we're gonna touch on that for the last like few minutes of this podcast, because I was like, you said it earlier. I'm like, I gotta come back to that. I don't know how I'm gonna segue into that, so I'm just gonna dive into it. But because most people I've met, they're like that it's not been the most enjoyable, beautiful experience. But tell me about your experience. Tell me about you and Brody.
I absolutely loved it because it was the most epic mental and physical challenge of all time. And on the other end of it, I was like, if I can do that, I can do literally anything. And I know there's a lot of women that are going to listen into your podcast that can connect with that feeling of like, I mean, Rebecca, you chose to climb Mount Everest, right? Like people that are listening into this, like you're choosing to do hard things to prove to yourself that you can. And I looked at this opportunity of like having a baby, wanting to do it a certain way. Like I really wanted to do it unmedicated. I wanted to just like have this ultimate experience, like the test of like my body and my mental strength. And it was just my husband, Cena, and I in the room. We didn't actually have a doula when we gave birth. So it was like this ultimate teammate game. I was laboring in a bathtub, and the only time I ever talked to Cena was I would say like water, and he'd put my water like with my straw in my mouth, and I drink water and I pass it back to him. And then it's like after you're done, you get this baby on your chest. You're like, what the heck? And I know that's not everyone's experience, but
where were you? Tell me more. I need more about this, because you're like, there's just the three of us. Like, where were you? Are you at the hospital?
So we were at the hospital, and I personally wanted to do it at the hospital just because I was like, what if something goes wrong? Like I wasn't comfortable doing a home birth for our first baby, which I know some people are, but that was not my thing. And I was having I had a lot of contractions at home. We got 4 minutes in between those contractions before we went to the hospital, and then eventually got checked into our room. And the room at the hospital that we had a bathtub. So I decided that I wanted to labor in the bathtub, and I was just like in the zone of just like trying to stay in my primal brain of like, your only job is to birth this baby. So I basically outsourced talking to people to Cena, which I'm a very, as you know, Rebecca, like you and I are both very like outgoing, extroverted people, but I did not talk to any like nurses or any doctors. If they had questions, they had to ask Sina because I was just like in the mode of like, I'm just gonna stay in my primal brain. I'm not gonna worry about any medical questions. So Sina was doing all of that. But when he was born, I could feel because like I didn't have any medication. So I could feel that like his head was like coming out of me. I stood up and walked to the bed. And as we got to the bed, I was like, his head is like coming out right now. The doctor barely got into the room. She got there like literally 20 seconds before he was actually born. So it was like really wild and I had a really crazy experience. But the reason why I talk about it is because I also want to normalize. Yes, it is absolutely hard. It's 100% the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. So painful, such a mental challenge, but also the thing that I am single-handedly the most proud of because I'm like, I can't even believe that my body could do that. I have a totally different appreciation for my body. Even getting back into like working out postpartum, it's not like I want to get back to how I was before. I'm like, I want to be even stronger and more fit because now I know what I'm capable of. Like, I want to honor this body that literally grew and birthed a human into the world. And I love that you asked me about this because you just don't hear people talking about the positive sides of it, that like it can be hard and so epic. And I honestly like it was the coolest thing ever. Like I can't even wait to do it again.
Yeah, oh my gosh, yeah, it's so crazy because I had so many. I think there was like 8 people that I knew in 2023 who had babies, and the normally like I'm hearing like epidural, like it's each to their own, like whatever. Like if you
Yeah,
feel like
yeah.
you're gonna be more calm having an
Yeah.
epidural, and that's gonna work better for you, and you don't feel like that's gonna add stress onto your baby, then like all two, whatever. But I was like, God, there's all these people having like no epidural, and then one of my friends, she had a home birth, like her
Yeah.
first kid at home. I'm like, as sunset's coming down, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I would like go all the way to like a home birth, like with no medication. I think I'd like to be at least in the hospital. But it was really cool to see like women actually speaking up about it and being like, no, you can do these hard things. And like if that's something that you want, right? But each to
Exactly.
their own. Like if it's your body, it's
Yeah.
your you got to go through it. So whatever
Hmm.
makes sense for you, I think that's so awesome. So
Yeah.
so finally, like what what has it been like having a baby and doing your business? Because you're like me. Because how old are you, Kacia?
34.
Okay, you're 34. Yeah, I'm 35, right? So you made sure like your career was like it was
Yep.
important, right? It was like that's it. How do you adjust? Because I'm gonna be honest with you, that's what I fear. How do
Yeah.
you adjust from like this is my business, like I know how to get stuff done, my to-do list. How
Yep.
do you now navigate being so entrepreneurial and an A player to now managing your time with a newborn or a child?
I'm in it right now in such a real way that I can't even answer the question of how you do it except for holding on to the belief that I 100% know that you can. But it has to look different because I think it's natural to it was at least for me. I approached the business with a newborn the same way that I built a business before having a newborn and thought I would just do it the same way with a baby, which made sense at the moment. But now looking back, I'm like, that doesn't totally make sense because you're just in a different season. But
Yeah.
what's really cool about it is like you're faced with this opportunity where like you get a lot more clarity on what it is that you want to do. You get a lot more clarity on like what actually matters. And to be honest, like he is like our son Brody is such a fuel source for me to figure out what it is that I want to do and how to do it in an aligned way because I don't want to just tell him that he can chase his big dreams. Like I want to be living breathing proof. I want him to be able to look at me like I know I can, mom. I watched you. It's so real and so visceral. But in the meantime right now, as I'm in the season of like, I'm wanting to savor this newborn season, but I'm also knowing that there's a lot brewing. What it feels like in my body is if I'm like a pot of water on the stove and the water's bubbling and the lid's on and it's kind of shaking, where I'm like, I know something really big is coming that's going to be even better, but I had to slow down a little bit. So, to anyone that's listening into this that is building a business, knowing that they want to have kids later, please know that you are giving yourself the most epic opportunity to have choice of how you approach this if you build a business first. For those of you that are in it, please make sure that you're building a business that's aligned for you in this season and the season of motherhood for you, even if it doesn't look like somebody else's. But like it is so worth it. And if you feel this desire to do both, like I do, like that's in you for a reason. It's just, it has to look different. Cause like I can't compare myself to people who don't have kids right now of how they're building a business. And I can't compare myself to a prior version of myself when the circumstances were different. Otherwise, it's going to dig at my confidence, even as a seasoned entrepreneur. So this is like new season, new success criteria. It looks a little bit wild, but we're so fortunate because both my husband and I are entrepreneurs. So we can both do things that we're excited about. But I'm really trying to slow down for the next couple of weeks intentionally to learn what I need to learn. And then I'm just going to show people how you can sure as hell do both. And it's going to be epic. So
I
yeah.
love that. I'm signing up for that class because that's I want that. Like, yeah, you can do both. And oh my gosh, he is so stinking cute.
Thank you.
Like, I mean, like you look at some babies and you're like, yeah, they're cute, but like you have a really cute baby. He's super animated. Like he like sticks his tongue out and he's like, he's like your child. I'm like, he is very animated. Like, oh, it's so fun. Like every day is so different. So to close us out today, Kacia, what does grit mean to you?
Sticking with it, even when you feel like, how the F am I going to do this? Because you know that on the other end of that question is so much growth for you. And like, you need that growth to sustain where you want to go. But like grit is just like, you're in it, you're going for it. And like, you're like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. And you're on the brink of an ugly cry, but you keep going and you're so damn proud because you do it. Because you know that a future version of you is going to look back on you right now and be like, damn, look how far I've come.
Oh, I love that. And where can everybody find you, follow you, and grab all your stuff?
I love you so much, Rebecca. Thank you for having me. So my podcast is called Empower Her. It's every Monday and Thursday, and you can find me. My favorite social media platform is Instagram. It's Kacia Ghetmiri, Kacia. And yeah, I'm just so excited. So thank you so much for having me, girl.
No, thank you. I know you got a new last name since last time we
yeah.
So excited. Well, I'm just so grateful for you, for your friendship and just being so authentically yourself. You give me and everybody else permission just to be a little bit spicier and just go for it and not worry so much about what everybody thinks. So thank you so much, Kacia, for being on the show, and make sure everybody go and follow her and give her some love. See you guys next week. Bye.